Resource dependency theory is a key management theory that explains how an organization's actions and structure are influenced by the external resources it needs to survive. The theory highlights the importance of managing interdependencies with other organizations and stakeholders in order to gain a competitive advantage. Organizations don't operate in isolation. They rely on resources from the external environment, whether that's raw materials, funding, talent, or other critical inputs. How an organization manages these resource dependencies can have a big impact on its behavior, decision-making, and overall strategy. Understanding resource dependency theory can help leaders make more informed choices about partnerships, alliances, and other external relationships that are vital to the organization's success. Resource dependency theory provides a useful framework for understanding how organizations interact with and adapt to their external environments. The core idea is that organizations are dependent on resources from outside their boundaries and must navigate these dependencies to acquire critical resources and ensure their long-term survival. This theory highlights how organizations seek to manage their dependencies, reduce uncertainty, and maintain power and influence within their environment. Understanding resource dependency can give us insights into strategic decision-making, organizational structures, and the dynamics between organizations and their stakeholders. In this video, we'll explore the key principles of resource dependency theory and how they apply to real-world business challenges. Resource dependency theory focuses on how organizations rely on resources from their external environment to survive and thrive. The theory examines the power dynamics between organizations as they try to manage their dependencies and gain power over others who control critical resources. Organizations employ various strategies to reduce environmental uncertainty and dependence on external resources, ensuring their own survival. This interdependence and need for resources creates a complex web of relationships between organizations. This slide provides an overview of the origins and foundations of resource dependency theory, tracing its roots back to the work of key theorists and researchers. It highlights the contributions of Herbert Simon, who laid the groundwork with his work on administrative behavior and decision-making in organizations. The slide then introduces James D. Thompson's open systems perspective, which emphasized the importance of the external environment in organizational functioning. Finally, it discusses the seminal work of Pfeffer and Solancic, whose 1978 book is considered the foundational text of resource dependency theory. These early thinkers and their ideas laid the conceptual foundation for the resource dependency approach to understanding organizational behavior and dynamics. The key assumptions we'll be exploring in this presentation are the interdependence organizations have with their external environment, the power imbalances that can exist between them, the strategies they use to manage uncertainty, and the strategic choices they make to address their resource dependencies. Organizations rely on critical resources from their external environment, creating interdependence with suppliers, distributors, and other stakeholders. This interdependence is a key dynamic we'll unpack. Power imbalances are common, with some organizations having more control over critical resources than others. This power differential is an important factor in how organizations navigate their relationships. To manage environmental uncertainty, organizations employ various strategies to reduce their dependence on external resources. We'll discuss some of these strategies in more detail. Ultimately, organizations have the ability to make strategic choices to address their resource dependencies and power dynamics with other organizations. This strategic decision-making is a core theme of the presentation. Interdependence is a key concept in organizational theory. Organizations rely on external elements like suppliers, customers, and competitors, which creates a need to manage these dependencies. Organizations seek to exercise control over critical resources and reduce their dependence on external parties. This gives them more power and influence. Managing environmental uncertainty is crucial. Organizations try to proactively acquire and maintain control over the resources they need to operate effectively. Organizations can employ various strategic responses to manage resource dependencies, such as mergers, joint ventures, or political tactics, to minimize their vulnerability. These four focal concepts, interdependence, power and control, managing uncertainty, and strategic responses, are core to understanding how organizations function and adapt within their environments. Organizational interdependence refers to the mutual reliance between organizations on each other's resources, capabilities, or outputs in order to function effectively. This interdependence can arise from the need to coordinate workflows, share information, or align strategic objectives between organizations. Interdependence is often manifested through the exchange of resources, such as materials, services, or knowledge, between different organizations. Understanding organizational interdependence is crucial for managing relationships and collaborations between companies, nonprofits, government agencies, and other entities. Organizations that control critical resources have more power and influence over others who rely on those resources. Businesses leverage their resource advantages to negotiate better terms and conditions with partners who depend on them. Power imbalances lead to one organization being more dependent on the other, creating an asymmetric relationship. Companies may co-opt external entities to reduce uncertainty and dependencies, giving them more control. Organizations need to actively monitor and gather information about the external environment, trends, and potential changes in order to reduce uncertainty. Adopting flexible structures, processes, and decision-making capabilities allows organizations to adapt quickly to dynamic environmental conditions. Establishing relationships and networks with external stakeholders, such as suppliers, customers, and regulators, can provide valuable insights and resources to help navigate uncertainty. By taking these proactive steps, organizations can better position themselves to manage and adapt to the uncertainties they face in their environment. Managing dependencies is a key challenge for organizations. We'll explore 4 main strategies for addressing dependencies. Acquiring resources directly to reduce reliance on external sources. Merging with or acquiring other organizations to control critical resources. Forming joint ventures to share and access needed resources. Outsourcing to external providers to access resources without owning them. Each of these approaches has trade-offs and considerations we'll discuss. The goal is to reduce vulnerability and increase control over critical resources. Vertical integration allows us to secure critical resources and reduce dependencies by acquiring suppliers, distributors, or other entities in our value chain. Mergers and acquisitions can provide access to new resources, capabilities, and markets, helping us manage resource dependencies. Collaborating through joint ventures and alliances enables resource sharing and co-development, mitigating dependencies on individual organizations. Diversifying into new markets, products, or services can reduce reliance on a single resource provider and increase our flexibility. Mergers and acquisitions are a strategic tool that organizations can use to acquire critical resources they may be lacking. This could include new technologies, patents, customer bases, or distribution channels that the acquiring company doesn't currently have. Merging with or acquiring another firm can also help reduce environmental uncertainty and dependencies by gaining more control over the resource supply. M&A can increase an organization's power and influence within its industry, over competitors and with key stakeholders. Acquiring firms in different industries or markets can help diversify the organization's resource base and reduce dependence on any single resource stream. Mergers and acquisitions are a strategic tool that organizations can use to acquire critical resources they may be lacking. This could include new technologies, patents, customer bases, or distribution channels that the acquiring company doesn't currently have. Merging with or acquiring another firm can also help reduce environmental uncertainty and dependencies by gaining more control over the resource supply. M&A can increase an organization's power and influence within its industry, over competitors and with key stakeholders. Acquiring firms in different industries or markets can help diversify the organization's resource base and reduce dependence on any single resource stream. Outsourcing key business functions to specialized providers allows us to focus on our core competencies and leverage external expertise. Subcontracting production or services can significantly reduce our operating costs and capital expenditures, improving financial efficiency. Outsourcing and subcontracting enable us to rapidly scale our operations, respond to fluctuating demand, and adapt to changing market conditions. Co-optation is a strategy where organizations bring in influential external stakeholders and incorporate them into the decision-making process. This helps manage resource dependencies. Organizations can also pursue political strategies like lobbying, forming alliances, and using personal connections to influence policymakers and regulators. This helps secure access to critical resources. Organizational leaders may engage in negotiation and bargaining with external stakeholders to get more favorable terms for accessing critical resources. The key point is that organizations have various strategies they can use to manage their resource dependencies and secure the resources they need to operate effectively. Resource Dependency Theory, RDT, can oversimplify the complex relationships between organizations and their environments. RDT tends to focus on short-term responses to environmental uncertainty, ignoring the long-term dynamics at play. RDT places too much emphasis on external factors, overlooking the important role of internal organizational processes. Quantifying and assessing the degree of interdependence between organizations can be a challenging task when using RDT. The slide outlines some of the key critiques and criticisms that have been leveled against resource dependency theory. It highlights how the theory has been seen as oversimplifying the complex relationships between organizations and their environments. The theory is also criticized for being too deterministic, failing to account for the strategic and proactive nature of organizational decision-making. Some researchers have argued that the empirical evidence supporting the theory's key propositions is mixed and inconsistent. Finally, the theory has been criticized for focusing too heavily on external factors and neglecting the role of internal organizational dynamics. These are important limitations to be aware of when applying resource dependency theory in practice. Resource dependency theory has been extensively studied and supported by empirical research. Numerous studies have found strong evidence for the theory's core propositions, including the impact of environmental uncertainty, organizational interdependence, and power dynamics on organizational strategies and structures. Researchers have used both cross-sectional and longitudinal data to examine the predictive validity of the theory across diverse industries and contexts. Meta-analytic reviews have synthesized the cumulative evidence, confirming the theory's ability to explain a range of organizational behaviors and outcomes. The empirical support for resource dependency theory has been consistently robust, demonstrating its explanatory power across multiple organizational settings and research designs. Resource dependency theory provides valuable insights into how organizations can manage external dependencies and power dynamics to gain competitive advantage. The theory sheds light on how organizational structures, decision-making processes, and individual behaviors are shaped by resource dependencies. In the public administration context, resource dependency principles help explain the complex interactions between government agencies, nonprofits, and other stakeholders competing for limited public resources. For nonprofit organizations, which often rely heavily on external funding sources, resource dependency is a critical framework for understanding their strategic choices and decision-making. Strategic management is about how organizations can gain a competitive edge and position themselves for success. Resource dependency theory highlights how companies can leverage external resources to enhance their strategic position. Diversification strategies can help reduce dependencies on specific resources or markets and increase flexibility and resilience. Forming strategic alliances and partnerships can enable organizations to access complementary resources and navigate uncertain environments. These are all important considerations as companies develop and execute their strategic plans. Resource dependency theory examines how an organization's behavior and structure are shaped by its dependence on external resources and the resulting power dynamics. It explores how managers make strategic choices to manage resource dependencies and reduce environmental uncertainty. The theory explains how organizations adapt their structures and processes to acquire critical resources and minimize dependencies. It also analyzes how resource dependencies influence interpersonal dynamics, communication, and collaboration within the organization. Understanding resource dependency theory is crucial for organizational leaders to navigate the complex web of resource needs and power relationships. Public agencies often rely on external resources and relationships to achieve their goals. This creates interdependencies that shape the behavior and decision-making of these organizations. Resource dependency theory highlights how public agencies can use strategies like mergers, joint ventures, and lobbying to manage power imbalances and dependencies. Public agencies must navigate complex, resource-constrained environments, requiring adaptive approaches to acquire critical resources and minimize uncertainty. Interorganizational collaboration, such as shared service agreements and network governance, can help public agencies pool resources and manage dependencies. Nonprofit organizations often rely on external funding sources like grants, donations, and government subsidies, which can make them vulnerable to resource dependency challenges. Nonprofits must balance their need for resources with preserving their mission and values, requiring strategic management of dependencies to avoid undue influence from funders. Developing multiple revenue streams can help nonprofits reduce their vulnerability to the loss of a single funding source and maintain greater independence. The image on this slide depicts a bright, modern nonprofit office with a diverse team of employees working on computers, highlighting the collaborative nature of nonprofit work. Resource dependency theory may not apply equally well across all organizational contexts and environments. It's important to consider the specific context and how it may influence the dynamics at play. The theory doesn't fully capture the complex interplay of multiple dependencies and power dynamics that organizations navigate. Real-world situations tend to be more nuanced and multifaceted. Organizations often face challenges in balancing the need for autonomy with the need to effectively manage their dependencies on external resources and stakeholders. Finding the right equilibrium is critical. Resource dependency theory provides a useful lens for understanding firm behavior, but it can be enhanced by integrating with other prominent organizational theories. The resource-based view focuses on internal resources and capabilities as the source of competitive advantage, complementing RDT's emphasis on external dependencies. Transaction cost economics examines how organizations structure themselves to minimize costs, which relates to RDT's insights on how firms manage external relationships. Institutional theory highlights the external pressures and norms that shape organizational behavior, which is relevant to RDT's focus on the influence of the external environment. By combining these different theoretical perspectives, we can develop a more comprehensive understanding of the complex interplay between a firm's internal resources, its external environment, and its organizational structures and strategies. The resource-based view emphasizes a firm's internal resources and capabilities as the primary drivers of competitive advantage, rather than the external environment. The VRN framework identifies resources that are valuable, rare, inimitable, and non-substitutable as key sources of sustainable competitive advantage. Resource heterogeneity and immobility across firms lead to performance differences and sustainable competitive advantages. Firms must leverage their unique, hard-to-imitate resources and capabilities to outperform competitors in the market. Understanding and effectively utilizing your firm's strategic resources is crucial for gaining a sustainable edge over the competition. Transaction cost economics is a framework for analyzing the costs associated with economic transactions, such as buying, selling, or contracting. It examines how different governance structures, like markets or hierarchies, can impact the efficiency and effectiveness of these transactions. The theory considers the risks of opportunistic behavior and the impact of asset specificity on transaction costs. Transaction cost economics can complement resource dependency theory in helping us understand organizational decision-making and structures. The key is to analyze the costs and benefits of different governance approaches to find the most efficient way to structure economic activities. Institutional theory examines how organizations are shaped by the broader social, cultural, and regulatory environment they operate in. Organizations often adopt structures and practices that are seen as legitimate and appropriate by their institutional context, even if they are not the most efficient. This is driven by the need for organizations to gain legitimacy and be seen as conforming to societal norms and expectations. Over time, organizations tend to become more similar to each other as they imitate successful practices and structures to gain this legitimacy. This is known as isomorphism. Resource dependency theory can be integrated with the resource-based view to provide a more comprehensive understanding of how organizations acquire and leverage resources. Linking resource dependency theory with transaction cost economics can offer insights into how organizations manage dependencies and minimize costs associated with external resource exchanges. Combining resource dependency theory with institutional theory can elucidate how organizations navigate the institutional environment and leverage dependencies to gain legitimacy and support. Aligning resource dependency management with overall organizational strategy is key to ensuring it supports the company's objectives. Cross-functional collaboration is essential for effectively managing resource dependencies, as it brings together different perspectives and expertise. Proactively identifying and mitigating risks associated with resource dependencies can help the organization be more resilient. Developing the flexibility to adapt organizational structures and processes to changing resource dependencies will allow the company to stay agile and responsive. Resource dependency theory highlights how organizations rely on external resources and how this can create power imbalances and dependencies. Policymakers can use these insights to develop regulations that address these dependencies, ensuring fair access to critical resources. The theory can also guide public investment decisions, such as infrastructure projects or subsidies, to help mitigate environmental uncertainties and strengthen organizational resilience. By understanding resource dependencies, we can design policies and investments that build a more stable and equitable business environment. The key directions for future research on resource dependency theory that we've identified are empirical validation, exploring contextual factors, and investigating interorganizational relationships. More empirical studies are needed to further validate the core tenets of resource dependency theory across diverse organizational contexts. This will help strengthen the theoretical foundation and applicability of the framework. We should explore how industry dynamics, technological changes, and regulatory environments shape organizational dependencies and power dynamics. Understanding these contextual factors is crucial for applying resource dependency theory in practice. Investigating the complex network of interdependencies between organizations and their impact on strategic choices and outcomes is another important direction. This will provide insights into how organizations navigate and leverage their resource dependencies. Overall, these research directions will help advance our understanding of resource dependency theory and its relevance in today's dynamic business environment. This slide provides a concise summary of the key takeaways from our exploration of resource dependency theory. We've highlighted how this theory offers valuable insights into organizational interdependence, power dynamics, and strategies for managing environmental uncertainty. However, we've also acknowledged the limitations of the theory and the importance of integrating it with other complementary frameworks to gain a more holistic understanding of organizational behavior. The goal here is to leave the audience with a clear sense of the core concepts and applications of resource dependency theory, as well as an awareness of its boundaries and the need for a more comprehensive approach. I encourage you to emphasize the practical relevance of these insights and how they can inform decision-making and strategy development within organizations. Organizations rely on external resources to survive and thrive. They must actively manage these dependencies to ensure stability and success. Organizations seek power and control over the resources they depend on to increase their influence. Strategies like mergers, joint ventures, and political tactics can help organizations manage their resource dependencies. Resource dependency theory has been extensively studied and supported across many different organizational contexts.